Attention gun owners. A new court ruling just shook California's carry laws from the foundation. That matters even if you live far outside the state's borders. Last week, 72-year-old Patricia from Seattle heard the update and froze. She'd spent $7,260 chasing clear answers about lawful self-defense while visiting family. For months, she felt like one wrong move could ruin everything. When the ruling landed, she said it felt like breathing again. Let me be straight with you. If you're not subscribed, you're relying on luck for urgent legal updates. This channel tracks changes that can affect your rights with little warning. People who wait usually learn the news after damage is done. Don't put yourself in that group. Subscribe right now before we go any further. Here's what happened in plain English. A federal appeals court said California went too far on open carry. For years, the state blocked visible carry for almost everyone. In dense counties, the answer was basically no from the start. In a few rural places, officials claimed licenses existed in theory, but many people never found a real path to get one. The court said a right can't survive if government locks every practical door. That should worry you even if you never plan to open carry. States watch each other closely when creating new restrictions. If one extreme model survives, others often try copying it. If one extreme model fails, lawmakers get a warning. That's why this decision feels bigger than one map. It's about whether your rights exist in real life or just on paper. And paper rights won't protect you during a dangerous moment. Let me tell you about Barbara. She's 71 years old and lives in San Jose, California. She retired from teaching after 38 years in public schools. After 2 break-ins nearby, she started taking personal safety seriously. She spent $6,485 on cameras, locks, training, and legal consultations. What she wanted most was simple guidance she could actually trust. Instead, she found a maze built to confuse ordinary people. One Monday morning, Barbara called 3 different offices for the same answer. The city told her one thing. The county hinted at something else. A private instructor gave a third version that contradicted both. She wrote notes on a yellow pad and circled every conflict. By lunch, she was shaking with frustration and fear. No one could explain a lawful path that made practical sense. 2 weeks later, her nephew drove her to a sporting goods store. They talked about safe storage, travel rules, and county boundaries. That conversation led Barbara to spend another $1,940 on secure transport cases. Then an employee quietly warned her not to trust unofficial internet summaries. He said people assumed they were compliant, then learned otherwise later. Barbara went home angry, confused, and scared of making one honest mistake. A system that punishes confusion invites disaster for decent people. After the ruling, Barbara finally felt a small opening. She didn't run outside or assume everything changed overnight. Instead, she joined a statewide legal update group and scheduled counsel. That visit cost $385, but it saved her more anxiety. Now she checks official changes before every decision and tells friends likewise. Her lesson was painful but clear. Rights mean little when citizens can't understand how to use them safely. Now think about George. He's 74 years old and lives in Portland, Oregon. George is a widower who drives south for fishing trips every summer. He keeps careful logs, obeys rules, and avoids unnecessary trouble. Last year, he budgeted $5,730 for fuel, permits, gear, and motel stays. He thought preparation would keep him safe from legal surprises. He learned preparation doesn't help much when rules shift county by county. On a Thursday afternoon, George pulled over and checked a travel forum. One post claimed a rural permit might cover visible carry nearby. Another warned the permit stopped working the moment county lines changed. George spent 40 minutes calling numbers listed on outdated county pages. One mailbox was full. Another office transferred him twice, then disconnected. He drove home that day feeling tricked by a system designed to exhaust him. The next month, George paid $812 for a private legal review. He wanted one simple answer before another trip. Could lawful conduct in one place become a crime after one wrong turn? The attorney explained that under the old setup, yes, that risk existed. George stared across the desk and said that sounded insane. The attorney nodded and said confusion often becomes its own punishment. That conversation changed how George viewed every promise made by officials. When the court ruling came out, George felt relief mixed with caution. He knew the fight wasn't over and appeals could come fast. Still, he finally saw judges acknowledging the problem regular people faced. He printed the decision summary and highlighted sections that mattered most. Now he travels with better notes, better contacts, and lower stress. He hasn't become reckless. He's become informed, careful, and far harder to mislead. Quick pause for a second. What state are you watching from right now? Type your state in the comments below. Different states handle carry laws in very different ways. Your comment also helps this video reach more people who need it, so comment your state before moving on. Here's what frustrates me more than anything. Officials often say a right exists while building a process nobody can use. That's not honesty. That's theater dressed up like public policy. If a state says maybe, possibly under narrow conditions, somewhere, someday you're allowed, that isn't access. That's delay, confusion, and selective denial by another name. And ordinary citizens pay the price in fear, money, and risk. Let me tell you about Diane. She's 70 years old and lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her daughter recently moved west for a new hospital job. Diane planned longer visits because her first grandchild arrived in November. After being followed in a parking lot near her hotel, she panicked. She spent $4,265 upgrading alarms, travel tools, and emergency communications. What she wanted was clarity before visiting again. The trouble began when Diane started reading public guides and old articles. Some sources said open carry history strongly favored ordinary citizens. Others claimed modern restrictions changed everything and ended that tradition entirely. She couldn't tell what was current, what was outdated, or what was opinion. Then a friend sent her a county checklist that no longer worked. Diane stayed up past midnight cross-checking everything with tears in her eyes. Fear does that to people when rules feel hidden behind closed doors. A few days later, Diane paid $1,175 for a multi-state legal consultation. She asked how a grandmother visiting family could stay compliant everywhere. The answer was careful, limited, and full of warnings. The lawyer said courts were re-examining old assumptions about visible carry restrictions. He also said states would keep testing the boundaries until judges stopped them. That made Diane furious. Why should regular people fund the learning curve of bad government decisions? Then the ruling gave her something she hadn't felt in months. Not certainty, but direction. She made a folder with current statutes, attorney contacts, and emergency plans. She also stopped trusting random summaries shared in group chats. Now Diane tells every friend the same thing. Hope is useful, but only when it's paired with verified information. The judges in this case looked past slogans and excuses. They asked a simple question: does our legal history support this kind of sweeping ban? The state pointed to rules about dangerous misuse and threatening behavior, but those aren't the same as peaceful, visible carrying for protection. That difference mattered a lot. A rule against abuse is not automatically a ban on lawful conduct. The court also focused on something many people overlook. For much of American history, visible carry was ordinary and understood. Hidden carry often faced heavier suspicion and tighter control. That doesn't mean every old rule was wise or fair. It means lawmakers can't erase historical patterns just because politics changed. When government bans the form, long treated as normal, judges notice. And this time, they pushed back hard. Let me introduce Richard. He's 76 years old and lives in Austin, Texas. Richard served in the Navy and still keeps every record neatly filed. His sister lives in California, and he helps after her surgeries. He isn't reckless, loud, or eager for confrontation. He spent $8,115 on travel, training refreshers, and attorney calls last year. Most of that money went toward avoiding mistakes, not taking risks. Richard's problem started with one simple family question. Could he help his sister for 3 months and remain fully compliant? He checked city rules, state summaries, and professional forums. Each source answered a slightly different question. None answered his actual one. By the end of the week, Richard had 12 pages of notes. He still felt less informed than when he started. Then his sister's neighborhood had 2 late-night break-ins within 10 days. Richard wanted to plan responsibly before his next trip. Instead, he found warnings about county boundaries, permit limitations, and enforcement confusion. He booked an urgent consultation that cost another $940. The attorney told him the system had been challenged in federal court. Richard leaned back and said the whole setup sounded deliberately unworkable. That anger stayed with him long after the call ended. When the ruling came out, Richard didn't celebrate blindly. He called the same attorney and asked what changed immediately. That follow-up cost $220 and saved him from dangerous assumptions. He learned the decision was major, but enforcement could still shift during appeals. Now he prepares with more confidence and less guesswork. He says the biggest win wasn't politics. It was finally seeing government forced to explain itself. Real quick, if this is helping you, hit the like button. That simple click helps this video reach more responsible viewers. More reach means more people learn before making costly mistakes. It takes 2 seconds and helps a lot. So like the video right now before we continue. Now let me show you why this ruling spreads beyond California. The court sits over a huge region with millions of residents. Judges in other places will read this opinion closely. Some will follow it directly. Others will use it as persuasive guidance in future cases. That means the logic can travel farther than the state involved. One strong ruling can change the national conversation faster than most people expect. This also matters because it shows how courts are testing gun laws now. The old habit was balancing government goals against private rights. The newer approach asks a tougher question first. Is there a real historical tradition for this exact kind of restriction? If the answer is weak, the law stands on shaky ground. That framework limits creative excuses from officials and forces real evidence. For citizens, that means clearer rules and fewer moving goalposts. Let me tell you about Nancy. She's 69 years old and lives in Denver, Colorado. Nancy volunteers at church and visits her son in California twice yearly. She started researching carry laws after a stranger followed her from a pharmacy. That scare led her to spend $3,184 on classes and security upgrades. She thought careful planning would solve the problem. Instead, the research opened a door to even more confusion. Nancy found state websites that sounded formal but answered very little directly. One page discussed permits without explaining practical limits across regions. Another page used language so vague she reread it 4 times. Then she found a community forum full of confident answers that disagreed completely. That mix is dangerous for older viewers who simply want honest guidance. Nancy told her son she felt punished for trying to obey. That sentence should shame every official involved. A month later, Nancy nearly canceled her trip entirely. She didn't want to risk misunderstanding a law with criminal consequences. Her son offered to cover an attorney consultation costing $615. During that call, the attorney explained the appeals ruling and its broader meaning. He said government cannot promise a right while making it unreachable. Nancy sat quietly for a few seconds after hearing that. Then she said, "Finally, someone is saying the obvious out loud." Today, Nancy still checks updates before every visit, but she no longer feels trapped by silence and contradiction. She has a written plan, official contacts, and better questions ready. Most important, she understands that court decisions can restore practical options. That gives people hope. Not fantasy, not shortcuts, just hope grounded in law and preparation. Think about someone you care about right now. Maybe it's your brother, your daughter, your neighbor, or your veteran friend. Someone in your life could use this information today. Share this video with them immediately. Send the link before you forget. One text could save them confusion, money, or serious legal trouble. Here's exactly what you need to do next. I'm giving you 5 steps, and each one is practical. You don't need to finish them tonight, but you should start step 1 this week. Write these down or save this video for later. Ready? Let's get into it. Step 1. Check the current law from official sources before acting on any rumor. Don't trust screenshots, old forum threads, or recycled headlines. Laws can change during appeals, stays, and local policy updates. Search your state website, county sheriff page, and trusted legal alerts. If wording seems unclear, copy it into a notebook and mark questions. Clarity beats confidence every single time. Step 2. Call the licensing authority in your area and ask direct questions. Keep your wording simple and specific. Ask what is lawful today, not what might happen later. Write down the date, time, office, and person you spoke with. If they won't answer clearly, note that too. A paper trail protects you when public guidance becomes sloppy or contradictory. Step 3. Talk to a qualified attorney before relying on any major interpretation. Yes, legal advice costs money, but bad assumptions can cost far more. A 1-hour consultation might run $250 to $900 depending on location. That's painful, but still cheaper than criminal charges, seized property, or months of fear. Pay once for clarity instead of paying later for confusion. Step 4. Download the court opinion or a trusted summary and read it yourself. Don't panic if every page feels dense at first. Focus on the core reasoning and the practical warnings. Look for what changed, what didn't, and what remains under appeal. Understanding the limits is just as important as understanding the win. Good information keeps you safe from both fear and overconfidence. Step 5. Train for judgment, not just equipment. Your best tool is still your decision-making under pressure. Take a refresher course on de-escalation, transport rules, and defensive planning. Talk with your family about travel, storage, and emergency communication. A legal right used carelessly can still bring terrible consequences. Preparation means building calm habits before stressful moments ever arrive. Let's review what we covered. A federal appeals court just rejected California's near-total block on open carry. That decision matters because other states watch these fights closely. You heard how confusion, delay, and bad guidance hurt regular people. You also heard why history still matters in constitutional cases. Most important, you now know this issue is larger than one state. This information could save you serious money, stress, and dangerous mistakes. Here's the final point I want burned into your mind. Government confusion is not a harmless paperwork problem. It changes how families travel, how seniors plan visits, and how citizens protect themselves. Barbara spent months afraid of an honest mistake. George changed entire trips because county lines felt like hidden traps. Nancy nearly stopped visiting her son. That is the human cost of laws written without respect for ordinary people. If this helped you, here's what to do next. Subscribe so you don't miss the next major update. Share this with someone who needs clear information. Comment your state or your situation below. I read comments and use them to shape future videos. Your engagement helps more responsible people find this before trouble finds them. Important disclaimer: this video is for education only and is not legal advice. It is not financial advice, tax advice, or personal safety advice. Every case is different, and laws can vary sharply by state and locality. Talk with a licensed attorney or other qualified professional before acting. What helps one person may be wrong for another.